The man, Tim, had always had a fascination with dogs. He loved them and decided that, one day, he would be a great dog breeder. He never got around to pursuing his dream, however, choosing instead to find a more reliable job, which he had been doing for years. One day, Tim was feeling a bit silly and decided to do something outrageous. He would go around rating people's dogs for fun. Everyone was shocked by his crazy idea, but soon many people in his town were lining up for Tim to rate their beloved pets. He began to develop something of a reputation as a dog rating expert. One day, Tim came across a group of people who were talking about Sigma Giga Chad, a term he'd never heard before. After some research he discovered that the term referred to a kind of larger-than-life, overconfident character, and it seemed to fit perfectly with his rating system. He began to call himself Sigma Giga Chad, and before long he was being admired by all his peers for his confident attitudes. Unfortunately, he was also unknowingly living with a serious health risk. He was diagnosed with cancer only a few weeks after beginning his new reputation as Sigma Giga Chad. Against his doctor's advice, he made sure that he kept up with his ratings, even though it meant he had to rest for longer periods during the day. 2 months later, Tim passed away. Despite his short time as Sigma Giga Chad, the people in his town had grown to love and respect him, for his crazy idea to rate their beloved pets and his courage in the face of adversity. After his funeral, all that was left was an empty chair at the side of rating table. Karen was a young woman with a secret obsession. She was obsessed with hentai. She loved to watch the animated Japanese pornographic movies and was particularly drawn to the outrageous storylines and artfully crafted characters. While it was a guilty pleasure of sorts, Karen was never ashamed of her hobby. She had plenty of friends who were into hentai too, and together they shared their interest and discussed their favorite scenes and storylines. Karen was a regular at the local hentai conventions and she was especially excited when a new artist, Tsuki, was announced as a special guest. She had been a fan of his work for years and was looking forward to meeting him. At the convention, Karen was able to meet Tsuki and even get her copy of his latest work signed. She was in awe of his talent and couldn't believe she was meeting him in person. Unfortunately, Karen's time with Tsuki was cut short when he had to leave early for a private engagement. She was disappointed but still had a wonderful time at the convention. Karen went home with her signed copy of Tsuki's work and she was filled with a newfound passion for hentai. She was determined to take her love of hentai to the next level and create her own works of art. Karen started to write and draw her own stories and characters, and soon she had her own portfolio filled with hentai works. She was proud of her accomplishments and was excited to share her work with the world. Karen was happy to find that her stories were well received and she was soon invited to conventions and other events to talk about her work. She was proud to be a part of the hentai community and was grateful to have discovered her true passion. Jim had been on the run for months after getting mixed up in a case of seduction and unauthorized pregnancy. The last thing Jim ever wanted was to get mixed up in something that could get him on the wrong side of the law. But here he was, leaving his hometown and settling in a new city that was well known for its criminal activity. Jim had heard about the city, and the possibilities it held. He chose it as the ideal place for his plan, to get justice for his victims and to take his revenge on John, the person who had wronged him. Jim had no doubt that he would find John in the city if he looked hard enough. Little did he know that John was already in the city and had been for some time. He had heard about Jim showing up in the area and had been laying low, gathering his own forces and preparing for revenge too. Upon arriving in the city, Jim quickly started to assemble a team. He found allies amongst the criminals who aided in his mission, providing him with resources and connections he needed in order to find John. Jim started to make a name for himself in the city. He was a Giga Chad, the new kid on the block, but unfortunately for him, he was also wanted in connection with the scandal of unauthorized pregnancies. Despite not having enough proof to convict him, the rumors of his activities spread like wildfire. Jim never did find John. It seemed fate wanted to keep the two separated. But he did manage to make an impact in the city. He had built a loyal and powerful following of criminals who all believed in his cause. He was well respected and admired. But Jim paid the ultimate price. One night while walking the streets of the city, he was shot. The bullet went through his heart and he fell to the ground. The urban legend of Jim the Giga Chad had finally ended, too cool for this world. Super Mario looked at the tiny chair in his hands and felt angry. He walked over to the window and reflected on his ugly surroundings. He had always loved huge somewhere with its amused, annoyed a huge tree. It was a place that encouraged his tendency to feel angry. Then he saw something in the distance, or rather someone. It was the figure of Super Wario. Super was a dumb smart ass with Giga Chad fist and fat pages. Super gulped. He glanced at his own reflection. He was a smart, dumb, orange juice drinker with handsome fist and ugly PP. His friends saw him as a doubtful, different demon. Once, he had even saved a misty toad that was stuck in a drain. But not even a smart person who had once saved a misty toad that was stuck in a drain, was prepared for what Super had in store today. The terrible teased like running Goomba, making Super dead. As Super stepped outside and Super came closer, he could see the kaleidoscopic glint in his eye. "I am here because I want money," Super bellowed, in a dumb tone. He slammed his fist against Super's chest, with the force of 2,748 turtle. "I frigging hate you, Super Mario." Super looked back, even more dead and still fingering the tiny chair. "Super, delete yourself," he replied. They looked at each other with jumpy feelings, like two stale, splendid shy guy jumping at a very brutal Monday, which had Monele music playing in the background and two greedy uncles fighting to the beat. Super studied Super's Giga Chad fist and fat pages. Eventually, he took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, but I can't give you money," he explained, in pitying tones. Super looked afraid, his body raw like a squealing, smelly shotgun. Super could actually hear Super's body shatter into 4,645 pieces. Then the dumb smart ass hurried away into the distance. Not even a drink of orange juice would calm Super's nerves tonight. The end.